By the time you hit 35, your brain has already made a decision about who you are. And the unsettling part is that neuroscience research shows that up to 90% of how you think, feel, and act is just recycled patterns from your past. In this video, we're talking about the neuroscience of starting over and why your brain keeps you stuck at 35. So what's actually happening? Your brain doesn't just shut down in your 30s, which is why you're still here watching this video, you are still alive. But it does enter a critical transition phase. Brain volume starts to shrink in your 30s and in your 40s, and it affects areas that are responsible for decision making, learning new skills, and forming new memories. And it's not a dramatic and sudden change, it's a gradual and unnoticeable process. So in my personal experience, when I was juggling my master's thesis, my IVF appointments, and learning a new culture, getting married, I wasn't imagining the cognitive load. It was simply harder because in your 30s, picking up new skills is harder, it takes longer, and decision making is just a heavier process. So I stopped beating myself up when I realized that it wasn't just me. This is what's happening to everybody. The brain just functions differently in your 30s than it did in your 20s. In order to understand why our brains operate differently in our 30s than they did in our 20s, we need to understand neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is the brain's capacity to recognize and form new neural connections. And it doesn't disappear with age, but it operates differently than it did in our 20s, in our childhood, and in our teens. So in our childhood, the brain is incredibly adaptable and it takes in information like a sponge. It soaks in everything. But in your 30s, your brain is more selective with regards to the information it's taking in. This explains why picking up new skills in your 30s requires more intentional effort than it did a decade earlier. And on top of that, your brain is actually producing fewer chemical messengers that support motivation, memory, and mood. So in my case, during my master's, on some days I was on fire. I had everything down. I could get through reading scientific papers, write a whole essay and submit it, no problem. On other days, I struggled to pick up the phone, especially during my IVF cycles. It was an absolute struggle. But it's just that the chemistry is literally fluctuating. It's not a problem with me. It's not a problem with you. Your brain chemistry is fluctuating. So here's what nobody tells you. Here's the part that fundamentally changed my perspective when I was knee-deep in research papers at 2 a.m., going through my IVF treatment, while also having to show up for work, attending lectures, and honestly just questioning whether starting over was a viable decision in my 30s. New brain cells continue to form throughout life and even into old age. The brain can actually create new connections. It can adjust existing ones and restructure itself. Research even shows that stress-induced brain damage can actually be reversed once the stress is dealt with. And when I tell you, I'm a big advocate of stress management in my life now, I am not over-exaggerating. I literally structure my life around things that are going to bring more joy, are going to help me manage my stress and really actually eliminate stress as much as possible. All that to say, the brain is not broken in your 30s. It is just more strategic, and that selectivity is actually an advantage when you know how to work with it. So how do we work with it? What are the practical things we need to do to help our brain support us as we go through our own self-reinvention journey? So based on my research and my own experience of going through multiple life transitions simultaneously, 3 things consistently support the brain during this process. Number 1, your environment matters more than you think. Your nutrition, your sleep, exercise, stress management, social interaction, cognitive stimulation are all very important, and they affect your brain's ability to form new pathways. I used to think I could survive on 4 hours of sleep, and the research, my own experience when I burnt out, proved me wrong. prove me otherwise. I really started focusing on my nutrition. I started learning about metabolic health, how stress and sleep affect your overall well-being. I started taking care of my reproductive health that I'd never thought about before, and going out for walks every single day, getting fresh air, just moving my body, exercising. Now I exercise every day, and it completely started transforming my life to the point where I'm more confident. I am able to do things that I want to do. I'm able to actually think of ideas and start executing on them. And all of that has only happened because I started looking at my environment. I started looking at the things that I was consuming when it comes to cognitive function or cognitive stimulation. I started to look at the things that I was consuming, and it was a game changer. So your environment really does matter more than you think. Aside from the fact that you're going through this big life transition, changing everything, moving to a new country, changing careers, some of us are actually dealing with trauma. Some people are dealing with a lot of childhood, adulthood, teenhood trauma that we need help with. So part of the reinvention story is not just the physical changes that you're making, it is actually the mental changes that you need to make. It's the emotional, psychological changes that you need to work on. Being a woman, our bodies operate based on a cycle. Our bodies go through 4 phases in the month. Research shows that 80% of women experience a hormonal imbalance at some point in their lives. And people with reproductive health conditions such as PCOS actually have a 50% more increased chance of having a psychological disorder as well. So if you're a woman going through your reinvention cycle in your 30s, I highly recommend professional help, whether it is a therapist, whether it is medication, or just going to see your primary care provider to just have a full workup on your body, to understand your hormonal profile, to understand your health better is highly, highly recommended. The third thing that is going to support your brain's ability to adapt is challenge. And the challenge has to be genuine. Here's the key difference. In adulthood, your brain does not respond to passive stimulation. So simply scrolling on your phone, on social media, consuming as much as you can is not going to do it. You need actual novel challenges, whether it's building a new business, starting a new career, doing a graduate program, going through fertility treatment, or working on your fitness. It has to be novel and it has to be challenging. If you do these 3 things, challenging yourself and therefore challenging your brain, changing your brain chemistry, whether it's through professional help if you need it, or just simply self-help tools, and looking at your environment and your lifestyle, you're going to support your brain in its ability to adapt, in its ability to build and form new connections, right? And therefore making it easier on yourself as you go through this self-reinvention process. In closing, starting over in your 30s is not impossible. It's just different because the biology is different. And different doesn't mean worse. It just means that your brain works differently. Understanding this really helped me stop interpreting difficulty as a personal failure, as me not being good enough, as me having left it too late. It is absolutely not too late. You are not too old. Where a younger brain scatters attention everywhere, your brain focuses on what is actually important. It is more intentional, it is selective, and it is strategic. So instead of fighting against that, work with it. It is going to help you make the changes that actually stick. And that brings me to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. I hope it's encouraging as you go through your own transition, your self-reinvention, your starting over process. I hope this video helps you be easier, be kinder to yourself as you go through the process. And know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, especially in those hard moments when you're lonely, when you're struggling, when you're failing. It's just a challenging time and you can absolutely get through it. I hope you have got the tools from this video to help you get through those days. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, to subscribe to the channel, stick around, leave a comment. Are you going through your own reinvention process? And I will see you in the next one. Thanks.